I warmly welcome you to Infinity Learning Space, your personal learning space. We are teaching with passion and compassion, and this is the very first session. As you see, learn the heart of auditing, audit risk model and assertion part 1. So I'll take this 5-10 minutes to give you the confidence about being a chartered accountant, right? How easy or how difficult, and then the subject of auditing, is it really difficult? So that's what I want to articulate. Now, if you look at this, over the last more than 15 years of experience of teaching advanced auditing as well as other subjects like corporate governance, especially advanced audit. If you ask from any even recently qualified chartered accountant, how is advanced auditing when you did few years before, maybe 5 years, 10 years or 15 years before, right? Then you can understand the perception, right? So sometimes perception can be a reality, it may not be the reality, right? So when I ask, usually in physical lectures, I used to ask this question: do you think, in my first lecture, is auditing difficult? So a lot of people say that it is difficult, but the point is, right, I would rather say nothing is difficult. It is only we, or it is only you, who can make something difficult or easy. Anything in our life, if you have the courage, will, you can achieve, right? As long as you are determined with perseverance, right, to follow what you want to achieve, to perceive what you want to achieve, it is a matter of time. So anything is possible. So, but what I want to say by looking at this now, where auditing is placed in this new curriculum of chartered accountancy. Now there is a separate pillar called audit assurance and ethics, and BL5, that is to learn fundamentals of auditing as well as business processes with little appreciation of digitalization. And then there is the subject advanced auditing. But if you ask me whether it is truly very complicated advanced paper, my answer is no, compared to auditing papers we had few years before, 5-6 years before. In previous curriculum, it has been a very tough subject. And you will also ask that why there is no auditing here, but you need to understand that auditor, you may say, auditor is going to be a practitioner. Why auditing is such an important subject in chartered? But when you can speak to some of the renowned chartered accountants, right, highly respected, competent chartered accountants in the market, the recognition that chartered accountants have gained, that is primarily due to certain technical subjects, the technical capabilities, hardcore for chartered accountant, financial reporting, auditing. Now if you take auditing, although only few chartered accountants may decide to practice as practicing auditors, the knowledge that they gather during the training period about different companies, governance, culture, internal controls, evaluation, right, with that exposure and with this knowledge about standards, evaluating controls, and when you join a company, this naturally will flow, and you may advise your company to set up internal control processes. You may advise board of directors about, setting up risk management, changing governance, adopting best practices, etc. So that wealth of knowledge is coming through this subject. And remember, although this is blank, the advanced business reporting has 45% content on governance, right, and auditing from the lens of financial control, or CFO, right? So that actually I am covering this subject as well as a part of this curriculum. And also there is another module. If somebody wants to be practicing auditor, there is another assessment that is called professional practice module. Now you will understand the importance. I took few minutes to explain to you the importance of the subject, And like I mentioned to you, I want to say this to you, right? Those who have the perception that this is tough and doing chartered is tough and I have been doing for many years, and if you are thinking so, right, change your mindset, change the way you see the world, right? So look at this statement. I want to start this course with this. Remind yourself every day that nothing is impossible. All limitations are in your mind. When you have the determination, perseverance, anything is achievable. And I want to tell you, right, for perhaps you might think that, okay, I've been doing chartered for 5 years, still I'm struggling. Something wrong. You have to figure out what is wrong in your approach and address that. You can see there are sometimes very young people, they complete exam at the age of maybe 23, 4, etc. Whereas some complete after 30, right? But what I want to say, the most valuable thing that you got is the human life, right? During this life, there are far greater things that you can do. While you may now think being a chartered accountant is very important, I agree with you, even that was our dream as well. But when you reach that, you will see this is just one achievement and there are many other things that you can do in your life. So one of the main advice that I always give to students, not to say don't waste time, but to say don't waste life. Every minute of the life is important. Now see, as a human, how many things that you can do. You can make other people happier, all of that. But do you have time? All of us, we are very busy. Our time, every minute is important in our life. Therefore, when you watch this, what this module that we have creatively designed, that my role is to guide you A to Z in auditing essential theory. Any longer standard, maybe 30, 40 pages, I'll give you in 1 or 2 diagrams. So one of the things in essential theory module is to give you the essence or the distilled version. When I use the word distilled, you might see, what is that word distillery? No, the word distill learning that we use to say that every minute that you watch, you have to learn something that is going to help you in the exam, not only exam, even otherwise, right? But this is something that I want to tell you, the distillation. Now I use this word distill learning, right, which means you are going to get the essence. The meaning of distillation process is that you take liquid and heat, it becomes a gas, and then you again cool it and convert it back to a liquid so that you get the spirit. So the idea of essential theory module that you will take from this session onwards is for you to get the essence of theory. But remember, theory alone is useless. If you are given a case study, you don't know how to apply. Therefore, essential theory is also backed by some case studies. Always, there are always case studies. But if you take our exam preparation module, that is totally based on what? All case studies done with a very experienced practitioner, right? So now I want to tell you that when you plan to prepare for this series of essential theory, I am giving this advice to you, right? Always I recommend you, don't just disrespect this video by just watching here and there. Make sure you go to your personal learning space, where it is, maybe your room or wherever you are staying. Make sure that you actively engage. How do you engage? You can maintain a very, always when you sit with a notebook, I mean very simple blank book like this, right? And you will listen and convert this distilled version in your understanding. And every video you have your own notes while you get our notes as well, and that is very important. And then another important thing that I want to remind at the start is the study text reading, all of that. You see some questions directly comes from study text. After you watch the video, the idea is study text is read. The third thing is for you to engage. What are the two things? You have to have your notes, study text, that as the video goes, I am live highlighting in the PDF version and you are highlighting from your book, and at the end of the video book is read, and then I am also wherever possible trying to put case studies and MCQ. And when there is MCQ, don't watch the next video without completing your self-learning module, the MCQs. And after completing, you can come back and make sure after every video, before switching to the next session, that you really understand the theory, and if a case study is given, you are able to apply, right? So that's something important. The other message that I want to give you, as far as auditing is concerned, you need to always focus on bigger topics. So I have named this session as the heart of auditing, and this session is broken to two. One is about 20 minutes maybe. That is to tell you, I would like to say this as a story of auditing. The story unfold by stages, and like an interesting story, make it interesting, right? And when you make something interesting, definitely you will excel in that. When I use the word excel, that I spoke about dream, right? And when I was a student, I had a dream about this subject to be a prize winner. I worked very hard, but of course I didn't achieve. When I start lecturing, I had this dream, okay, why there are no prize winners? But then, like I said, those dreams, anything, right? If you drive something properly, you can definitely achieve. So I am proud to say that there had been in the past, right, highly exceptional students who were guided with this approach to be prize winners, even some prize winners who are from non-audit sector for advanced auditing. So those are the track records that I can confidently tell you that this course is going to help you. But from your side, you need to make sure that you are actively engaged and don't have one-way learning. And that is why, as another unique feature, we want to have interaction with you on a regular basis, maybe weekly basis. And as you know, there is a separate revision kit that has series of questions, and we can give you a mock examination. The more questions that you are going to do, your success is, I am not using the word guaranteed, your success is kind of, assured to a great extent. So those are advices. I remind you, make sure you have short notes and the study text, and when there are MCQs, take it. So before getting to now, another thing I told you, this has two sessions. One is the story of auditing, part one, the auditing kind of pyramid, how it is built with the objective and the prerequisite, step by step, how to go there. And part two of the video is about 1 hour. That is really the heart of companies, internal control, auditors, risk assessment process, companies control, all of that, and financial statement assertion. Once you have that background, you are best, you are well equipped to take this course. So therefore, don't ask this question, now why chapter 1 is not done now? All these topics are carefully organized in a logical manner. So chapter order may not be there, but there may be a very logical order in which subjects are taken, and at the end you will see how these topics are extensively covered. So those advices are very important. And then another thing, after this 1.5 hours of careful listening, you will figure out that these syllabus content, right, they are very well connected. So let me to show you that. Now if you take the main purpose of auditing, right, is to ensure, right, auditor to form an opinion stating that financial statements are free of material misstatement. So main purpose of an audit, for the auditor to, right, form an opinion saying that financial statements are free of material misstatement. So this is called a risk of material misstatement. So the whole process of auditing revolves around identifying risk, that is from the planning process when there is a risk, as the auditor, for example, auditor knows in a company sale is overstated, right, by a significant amount, say 10%, right. As a result, this auditor has to find out, okay, if this is likely to be overstated, has it actually been overstated? Auditor has to figure out. Now initially under risk assessment, auditor will see there is a possibility that the sale value is inflated by 10%. There are going to be a possibility. Now 10% value auditor may exactly not know, but there is a greater chance in this company sale is going to be wrong. The way they recognize sale is different. Why I took the sale example now itself, because I am going to take a similar example in this video. Now because that possibility, audit has to check in more detail to see actually sale is overstated or not by doing further audit procedures. So now these two are very much connected. And then after check-in auditor figure out the company has recorded sale before goods are actually control of the goods are transferred to the ultimate customer. Therefore, auditor has now detected that there is 50 million, let's say 10 million worth of sale that is to be reversed, and that 10 million represent 10% of the reported sale, and as a result audit is evaluating whether audit report to be changed and whether to give a qualified audit opinion. Now you see, right, and okay, now why there is such a chance that in this company sale is going to be wrong? Why they are overstating? Because their internal controls are really weak and their governance is really bad, because they are trying to manipulate accounts. Now you see the connection. I took only 5 minutes, right? See the connection, that this is about internal control, where company is going to make sure their numbers are right, and if company's process or controls are not good, the chances that risk in the financial statements are high, right? And then if there is such a chance, auditor will try to detect what is the amount of the misstatement, and after that auditor will evaluate whether that is going to have an impact on the audit opinion. Now if you take these areas 30, 50, 60, right, and then the other connected topic is obviously for the auditor to perform an audit, auditor has to be independent person and follow code of ethics. That's essential in auditing, and there is a quality system in the audit firm to make sure how to do an audit in terms of, there can't be audit firm where there is one partner and then there are only 2-3 people, right? Because you see, when one partner's opinion is reviewed by another partner, in case of high risk engagement, audit supervisor's work is reviewed by the manager, that whole process of bringing the quality to make sure audit is done based on auditing standard is the quality. When you add that 15 together, that is 75% of your syllabus, right? So in addition, there are other important topics. Again, there is a connection. If you are looking company's internal control, the main party who gives assurance that company's controls are working, and that is internal audit. These two are highly interconnected, right? So with that is 80. So the balance topic, if you see, that is going little beyond again towards the audit firm, that auditor can provide services other than audit. That is where assurance engagement comes in. Today's context, if somebody asks auditor, now I am giving application to bank with a profit forecast, bank is asking auditor's opinion, right? So can auditor give assurance on profit forecast? Answer is yes. So for that purpose there are Sri Lanka standards on assurance engagement. So you have to have some understanding about that and the related services, right? So that has another 10%. So in addition, with today's world, right, with fourth industrial revolution, we are talking about digital world, digitization. There are various terms, buzzword we called IoT. What is IoT? Internet of Things. Various concepts like fintech, financial technology, blockchain, artificial intelligence, right, and RPA, all of that. So that part definitely you have to understand. Even forget the auditor from company's angle. If your company is going to implement RPA, if you are the CFO, you should understand what are the risks of adopting RPA, right? RPA, robotic process automation. So this is something new that you will learn in this subject. So I think that provides you a very good holistic picture about this subject. Before we directly get into certain subject matters, I want to again make sure that you understand now, because if you look at the previous slide, look at the bigger picture and the bigger topics, right? See the bigger topics, bigger connected topics. So to see that connection, you need to understand the holistic picture of auditing. And then I'll spend maybe next 10-15 minutes to give you that holistic picture, and then we'll look at, because audit is about giving an opinion on financial statements. Then I'll be spending about another 45 minutes to break financial statement into pieces, and then to see what are the risks in it, and then how do we analyze those risks in terms of material misstatements, and then we will go into case studies to look at how to answer questions. So the story of auditing, and I want you to have this because this is to refresh your bigger understanding of the subject. So the story starts like this, and you can also make a note, and whatever I am covering, as I told, is connected to your study text note as well. And I want you to open and have with you. You don't need to now necessarily read the book, but I'll give you the page reference, page number 11, which talks about an objective of an audit, right? Now, I'm going to explain to you logically how the auditing process is built, and I can refer it back to the syllabus weightage. Now, when you look at these elements, what is the foundation of audit? And also you may want to start with why an audit is done. And don't forget your first chapter and the first maybe 5-10% of the syllabus is to know the connection between corporate governance and auditing. So don't forget, the reason for audit is the perennial agency conflict where shareholders suspect financial statements, right, produced by management and the board. Because although, now this terminology you should know, the board is accountable to shareholders, right? And you would have heard this word stewardship concept. Steward means as the party dealing with shareholders' resources, the board is supposed to use these resources for the benefit of shareholders and then report back to the shareholders in terms of financial statements. But the question is, when board is acting on self-interest, the shareholders' interest may be ignored and then shareholders' money may be misused, and that is the very reason for calling an independent party to give an opinion, and that independent party is the auditor. So auditor provide audit opinion is going to enhance the credibility on financial statement as an additional report. Therefore, main purpose of financial statement audit is what? Is to ensure financial statements are free of material misstatement. So therefore, this is a bigger concept in your syllabus, material misstatement. And specifically in relation to, if you look at page number 11 of your book, right, this is again auditing standard, that the overall auditing standard which covers all the auditing standards is auditing standard number 200, overall objective of an audit. So what I'm going to essentially brief you now is this overarching auditing standard. This is the standard which governs all other auditing standard, right? So it says the objective of an audit is to ensure, right, that to give an opinion stating that the financial statements give true and fair view, and more specifically there are two clear objectives. One is to provide a reasonable assurance. Now this term is very important because again it connects back to another syllabus topic called assurance. Auditor can provide reasonable assurance, limited assurance. Remember, reasonable means high level of assurance. So reasonable assurance stating that the financial statements are free of material misstatement, and secondly, auditor has to give a report. Now these are the two objectives which are specifically mentioned in auditing standard number 200. If auditor is supposed to give an opinion, remember auditor's opinion is worded as independent auditor's report. Now if a party is not independent, so imagine audit partner is a very close friend of managing director of a company, right, and they are helping each other. In that context, when this company has financial difficulties, qualified audit report may result in problems in obtaining loans, etc. Therefore partner is going to be biased. Now see what I am explaining to you in code of ethics language, there is a self-interest threat to auditor's objectivity and independence. As a result, this opinion has no value, it is a biased opinion. Therefore auditing starts with ethics. So without ethics, no auditing. So the foundation requirement is to ensure ethical requirements are met. And as I write this, are met, you should know in your syllabus ethics is a separate part. So there I am asking, if you are ready for the exam, you must know what is conceptual framework approach to ethics. If you don't know that, you have to brush up your code of ethics knowledge. Conceptual framework approach requires three things. Auditor or accountants, in this case auditor, identify threats. Identify threats to fundamental ethical principles, identify threats, and then evaluate threats, and then have safeguards to reduce those threats. Because I am not covering code of ethics in detail now, but imagine if auditor is not independent, like I said earlier, this opinion is useless. Therefore one of the prerequisites is ethical requirements are met, but you have to ensure that you have studied these threats, evaluation of threats and safeguard in details, right? Again, to further test your knowledge, when I say threats, remember you should know these 5 threats, SAS, FI, right? What do you mean? Self-interest, advocacy, self can affect auditor's independence. So that's a separate session, but I am warning and asking whether you have studied that. If not, please go back and study. If you know this framework, any question you can easily cover. So once the ethical requirements are met, if you want to give an audit opinion, the next level is to ensure auditing standards are followed, because without a standard you cannot give opinion. Therefore doing an audit means every auditing standard has to be met. So the second requirement is to comply with all, see the word all, applicable Sri Lanka auditing standards. So that's where you have to demonstrate your understanding about auditing standard. Now there are auditing standards which are general, there are auditing standards on planning to identify risk, there are auditing standards to respond to risk in terms of test of control and substantive procedures, there are standards on reporting. Now if you follow all these standards, then that enable you to achieve this, the next outcome, right? When you comply with all auditing standards, you are going to achieve something big, and that leads to an opinion. Now can you guess what is this? If I write the word SA, what does it mean? Too big a concept. And AE, now are you able to guess? So you cannot form an opinion without sufficient and appropriate, right? Sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So the whole process of auditing involves gathering audit evidence on two aspects. And in audit, you will gather audit evidence. Why are you doing audit? To see whether there is any risk, right? Risk of material misstatement. So this MM in other words means what? RMM, risk of material misstatement. Now if the purpose is to identify risk of material misstatement, right, and then obviously you have to have risk assessment procedures in auditing, RAP, to identify risk. We'll take a very close example to the period that we are speaking, that with Corona, most of the companies were affected and the company's continuity is in question. When auditor looks at the balance sheet, P&L, the revenue has dropped and customers are not coming as usual. That is a risk. Auditor identify that risk as risk of what? Going concern. If that is a risk, auditor can't just identify risk and wait. Now this is the list of risk. The auditing is not over. The next part of auditing includes how, as an auditor, audit is going to evaluate whether company has responded to that risk by way of mitigating that risk. If it is a going concern, the idea is this company is going to close in 12 months. So auditor should be satisfied that they will continue beyond 12 months. And that is where auditor will do more procedures to find out this risk has been managed or not managed, and that is called FAP. So what is FAP then? The FAP is called further audit procedures, right? And in terms of further audit procedures, in case of going concern, the example that I took, if there is a going concern, is the first thing auditor will look at how company is going to mitigate this risk, right? But going concern is an extreme example. If you take any other risk, say risk of overstatement of revenue. I will take an example in a while about revenue recognition, right? Now if revenue recognition is a risk in a company, let's say this is an export company. I am going to explain this example in much detail in a little while. Export company has to ensure that their revenue is recorded properly by reconciling shipping documents with invoices. If auditor sees there is a chance that sales may be recognized before it is invoiced, before it is actually control is passed, if that is a risk, auditor, the first question auditor is going to ask, before I come and detect M, what is M? Material misstatement. Tell how are you going to detect material misstatement? How are you going to detect in your company? Because I am auditor, I am coming only say 1 or 2 months to audit. Everyday basis, on a daily basis, how the risk is mitigated, and that is the first thing logically in any audit. Auditor will see, are there controls that will reduce the risk? So that if controls are there, auditor will test those controls. Now in my example, if company is reconciling booked invoices with shipping details that ensure recorded transactions have actually occurred, right? So auditor is happy, but still auditing standard requires you can't audit. Now test of control means you are relying on how company is managing risk, but that is not enough. If anything is material in auditing, auditing standard requires auditor to perform auditor's own procedures with a view of detecting misstatement, and that is called substantive audit procedures. And then very high level substantive procedures to evaluate financial statements and identify potential misstatement without getting too much detail like checking invoices. High level risk identification detection tool that auditor uses is called substantive analytical procedures, right? So that is called substantive analytical procedures. And the detailed audit work, in my example, auditor is seeing a risk, control is not there, they are not reconciling invoices with shipping details. So auditor see that the chances of revenue is going to be overstated is very high. Therefore, auditor is going to perform auditor's own testing. That is called what? Test of details, right? So test of detail can be what? Examination of documents, inspection, right? Or it can be send in confirmation, etc. So it can go to a lot of details, right? So now these are FAP. The whole idea of FAP is to detect or to see how risk has been mitigated, right? So then after this, auditor will see if you take my example of going concern, there is a going concern issue, right? And company has no mitigation, right? Then auditor will decide, I am going to include this in my report as a going concern matter. Now see, I didn't use the word emphasis of matter. If company has disclosed going concern problem, it may be emphasis of matter. If disclose is not adequate, auditor may decide whether it is a qualified or adverse audit opinion. Now, do you see the connection between ethics, auditing standards, audit evidence, and how it connects to material misstatement? So our next discussion is to get into much detail, because see, if you really look at the syllabus coverage, I said 50% of your syllabus is coming from 3 topics. That is, planning the audit to identify risk. Now the only, if you take your pilot paper, right, there is a case study about 25 marks which we will go through. So there is a planning part which has been tested. As a part of planning, it covers both risk as well as response of the auditor. And then there is another part of your syllabus, what audit evidence that you need to really gather in terms of this response, and then reporting, right? So all of that. Now see, that is where 50% comes. And like I said, overall audit firm as a whole, how audit firm is going to ensure that these processes have been properly followed through a system, and that system is called audit firm's quality control system, and that is together with ethics is another 15% of your syllabus, right? And ethics is separately weighted in your syllabus. Now this is where you identify, you draw a bigger picture of this subject in your mind, and then you can get into more detail. So now we are going to start, let's go to whiteboard and break this into pieces in terms of identifying misstatements. There my main focus is to start with financial statements. Remember, if somebody asks this term true and fair view is same as free of material misstatement, the question is, what is a misstatement? The answer is, misstatement is always to be explained using accounting standards. Then misstatements, there are different types. You cannot explain a misstatement without assertions. So probably during next 45 minutes, I want to ensure before we get into questions that you really understand the nuts and bolts of this process of auditing. And after that understanding, we can again come back to past paper questions and to build your confidence in writing answers. So let's do that now.